In this video, I'm going to use AI to help me write code to automatically scan thousands of pages on the old school Runescape wiki, where I find a variety of crazy money-making methods that range from 800k per hour to 15.3 mil per hour. I love watching Soup's unusual money-making videos. A lot of the methods seem to be something you'd never think about, like go to this weird shop in a random corner of a game to bulk buy buckets of dog milk for 2 mil per hour. So inspired by all the crazy methods in his videos, the code's going to scan all the shops in the game, all the possible items you can craft, and also all the items that spawn on the ground. So join me to see if I can find a method that will help me cure my crippling addiction to buying bonds.
Warning, take everything in this video with a grain of salt. I'm a complete noob to the game and haven't done math in many years.
The plan for this section of the video is to get the data for every single shop in old school Runescape. The wiki has this category called shops, which is a nice bulleted list of each shop. The code is going to go to each of the shop pages, and then it's going to look on a page of this stock title and extract all the items with their data from the table below it. After a lot of trialing and failing, I think I've finally got the code to work. So I've made it spit out each item into this list. I add a few extra data points that I didn't mention before. So now it also checks if the item is stackable, as this means we won't have to run to the bank, increasing our potential GP per hour. Another data point I got is the daily volume. Let's use this maple blackjacks as an example. Data says for each one I buy, I can make 902 coins profit. So if I buy 1,000 of these, I can make 902k, which sounds great until you've checked the daily volume, which is just 62, meaning they'll never sell. Anyway, now I've got all the data, it's time to start investigating. To begin, I'm going to check the non-stackable items we can buy from the shop and sell to the GE. To do that, we'll use the data point profit buying from shop. This is simply the price the item sells for on the GE minus the price in the shop, giving us the profit. If we order the data by this, we can see the most profitable items at the top. I looked into a lot of options, but so many didn't have enough volume or some other problems, so I'm going to show you the two most interesting. The first one was buying battle staffs. Most people know Zaf staffs in Varrock, but he's out here scamming more than Logan Paul with Crypto Zoo. When you buy from Zaf, the price of each staff goes up by 2% every time you buy one. But if we buy from the Magic Guild store, it goes up by just 0.1%. This means we can buy out the whole stock of 5 staffs for just 7,014 coins each. It took me roughly 2 to 3 minutes per inventory based on how lucky I got when I was world hopping, as sometimes it was sold out. They restock very quickly at just 1 minute each, so every 5 minutes the stock should be full. But of course, if somebody else is doing this at the similar time to you, then it's going to mess with your hourly profit. For me, each inventory was taken on average 2 minutes and 30 seconds. This meant I could do 24 inventories per hour. Right now, the price of battle staffs is 8,050, so I can make 671k per hour. But a couple of weeks ago, the price was around 8,230 coins, which would have increased the hourly profit to 787k. It's a nice little consistent money maker, but the profits aren't high enough for me to even bother. The next item I'm going to look at is bagged plants. They're a method for training early farming levels so have a good daily volume. I chose to focus on bagged plant 3 as the profit margin was the highest. I used this calculator to figure out how much I wanted to buy. Buying 5 at a time seemed to be a good balance between price and time hopping. This means that I'll spend 10,600 per plant. Each inventory was taking me 1 minute and 40 seconds, so in 100 seconds I'd get 27 plants, which means I'll get 972 plants per hour. The slow sell price for these plants has been around 12k, so at about 1.4k profit per plant, 972 plants times 1.4k is roughly 1.36 mil per hour. 1.36 mil per hour is very nice for no requirements, but still nothing to go crazy about. You're not going to catch me grinding out. For the next part of this video, I'm going to look at the items that stack when you buy. These items require no time to bank, so smaller profit margins can still produce big profits as we're not limited by our inventory space. Let me introduce Baba Yaga's Magic Shop. After completing the Lunar Diplomacy quest, she sells you astral runes. Thanks to an update in 2022, she now sells them with a price increase of just 0.1% per rune instead of the previous 1%, so you can now buy out the whole stock of 250 and only spend 56 GP per rune. Sadly, my only account is a pure, so I couldn't test this method myself, as Lunar Diplomacy is a quest that I can't do, as it grants defense XP. But Soup has done a similar method of buying cosmic runes. He found he could get 60k runes per hour when he was using his Iron Man, as they have their own shop and stock and didn't have to compete with normal accounts. Recently, the price of astral runes has been up and down, varying between 120 GP and 160 GP. If we use Soup's 60k runes per hour, for 120 GP, the profit per hour would be 3.78 mil. For 140 GP, it's 4.98 mil, and at its peak of 160 GP, it would have been 6.18 mil per hour, which is a crazy amount. Of course, the 60k runes is going to be the upper limit. If you ever try this method shortly after someone else has done it, then you're going to get a lot less. But if astral rune prices are high, and you have an Iron Man or get a bit lucky and find some worlds with lots of stock, then 6.1 mil an hour is very good. It would be 16th on the wiki's list of best money makers in the game. For the next item I found, you need some higher requirements, as you need to be able to access the Legends Guild. The method is buying mithril seeds. They're commonly used in PKing, are stackable, and have a huge margin. If you buy out the whole stock of 6 per world, you will spend 310 per seed, and they currently sell for 2,187 each. Again, I don't meet the requirements for this, but of course Super's already done it. He managed to get 1,945 seeds in 1 hour. So with 1,945 seeds per hour at a profit of 1,855 each, that comes to 3.6 mil an hour. A very nice money maker if you have the requirements. The next section of the video, we're going to be buying items from the GE to sell to shops. I went back to my list of data, reordered it to show the highest profit selling to shop at the top, and started investigating. The first items that jumped out to me were some rune items I could sell to Sedu's Adventurer shop. You could sell these 3 items to the shop, all for a profit. So I grabbed some of these and headed to the shop. I wasn't sure how many I should sell each time I hop world, so I did some testing. To start, I needed to see how long it would take to sell different amounts. First I checked selling 1 per world, then 2, and finally 3 per world. I found that it didn't actually seem to matter. Each test ended with me completing 3 worlds in just under 30 seconds. This means I was spending roughly 10 seconds per world. Next, I needed to figure out how much profit I would get per item, as the money he buys them for gets reduced each time you sell one. To do this, I used the shop calculator again and manually got the sell prices. For example, if I sell 1 chain body per world, I get the full sale price of 32,500, but if we sell 5 per world, you'd only be getting 30,500 per item. Of course, this meant selling 1 per world would generate the highest overall profit, but I wanted to find out what was the most efficient amount, because it would obviously take longer. To do so, I had to check how many members worlds there were. There were 167. I also had a look how long it would take for the stock to be removed, but it was way too long, so our upper limit is 167 hops. Another limiting factor to this method is the buy limit on the GE. The most you can buy in one day of each of these items is 70. For this example, let's say you want to do this method 1 time per week, so you've managed to get 70 a day for 7 days, totaling 490 of each of the items. You head to the shop with 490 of each, noted. As I mentioned previously, we're limited by the number of worlds you can hop, so selling 1 per world is out of the question. The smallest amount we could sell to each world is 3 per world. This would take 164 hops to sell, and at 10 seconds per world it would take 28 minutes and you'd make 5.8 mil, making its GP per hour an effective 12.4 mil. Of course, the effective GP per hour doesn't really mean shit because you can only do it for 28 minutes because of the buy limits on worlds. But for 5.8 mil for 30 minutes work is not bad at all. But I'm sure as many of you are already thinking, this method had some big potential problems. Firstly, to make that 5.8 mil, you'd need to buy 51 mils worth of rune items, which could be a problem for many people. Another issue is there's a chance somebody has already done this method that day and the shop is going to be overstocked, cutting into your profits massively. But if you get lucky with a stock and have a spare 51 mil, it's a quick and easy way to make 5.8 mil in 30 minutes every week. For the next items I wanted to investigate, I wanted to avoid the 70 buy limit problem that I had with the rune items. So I filtered out any items with a low GE buy limit, and that's when I saw a few jewelry items which all had a buy limit of 10k per day. On the 20th of March 2024, old school Runescape got a huge update adding Valamore to the game. After starting the Perilous Moons quest, you can access Kamtura, which is the home of this little hottie, Kanara. She runs the jewelry shop and for some reason will buy certain jewelry pieces for above the G's price. There are many items you could sell, but I chose 6 based on the highest profit margins. I duplicated the spreadsheet from the rune items, and after a lot of manual work getting the prices, I had the data to calculate the potential profits. If you bought 1,670 of each of the 6 items and sold 10 per world for all 167 worlds, you would profit just under 3.8 mil in 28 minutes. Unlike the rune items from before, we're not limited by the buy limits on these items. That means you have the potential profit of 3.8 mil every day. Also, those 1,670 items would only cost you 5.9 mil on the GE. This makes it far more accessible compared to the rune items that cost 51 mil. The only other requirements are the ones to start the Perilous Moons quest. 48 Slayer probably being the hardest one, but sadly, although its potential profit is much better and more consistent than the rune items, this whole moneymaker is completely ruined if people have sold items to this shop that day. So that 3.8 mil in 30 minutes is probably the best case. As this content was only released 1 year ago, there shouldn't be too many people that know about this method, but still, it only takes one person and you can't do the method that day. I tested one other method in this category, and that was selling amulets to Devon. Once you've done all the easy tasks in the Karamja diary, you get the Karamja gloves 1. These gloves change the buy and sell prices in Devon's store. So again, I duplicated the spreadsheet, entered the buy prices, and found that the optimal amount for this shop was actually selling 15 per world. So if you sell 2,500 of each, you'd make 5.46 mil in 28 minutes, with a buying cost of 8.4 mil. I'm not certain how long it takes for overstocked items to reset, so I sold 15 to a world, started a timer, and just recorded to see how long it took to get back to 0. I found all the items had disappeared after exactly 30 minutes, so it's the same as the restock time on the wiki at 2 minutes per item. This makes the method way more interesting because in theory you could do it an unlimited amount of times. Hop every world, selling 15 at a time, and by the time you get back to your first world, there should only be about 2 minutes wait before you can go again. So in theory, with maximum efficiency, you can make just under 11 mil per hour. And looking at the old school RuneScape's money-making wiki, it would be number 5 on the list. Like all other shop methods though, this hourly rate is reduced by a single other person attempting the method at the same time as you. But with a max potential of 11 mil an hour, this is still a crazy method. In this next section is where I find the highest profiting method in this whole video, and I found it by looking at all the items in the game that you can craft. But before I get to that, let me explain how I found it. The wiki has 2 categories that I could find related to crafting. One is recipes that use a facility, such as crafting an astral rune at the altar, and the other is recipes that require a tool, such as crafting black d-hide with a needle. So, copied all the items from this list, removed duplicates, and then got the code to check the wiki pages for this table. Code checks the total cost and the profit. In the case like the black d-hide where there's 2 tabs, it just looks for the one with the highest profit. There was probably a better way to do this, but for this video it should do. In the end, I had a list of all the items with the following data points: their volume to check if it's worth mass producing, their GE price, the total cost, and finally the profit from crafting. So like with the other methods, I'm going to be looking for things with a high daily volume, and that's where I found the video's highest profit per hour method, and that was blood bark items. The blood bark legs and chest have the highest daily volume and also the best margins, but I'll do the math on all of them in a spreadsheet. To craft them, you need to have read a rune scroll of blood bark, which currently costs about 1k, then take the split bark item along with some blood runes to a blood altar. I don't have 81 rune crafting, and you can think again if you think I could grind that out for this video, but I had a search on Google and YouTube, and luckily I found Runescape had recently done a video on this method. In his video, he managed to make 600 in 1 hour, so that's the number I'll use for the calculations. So for the blood bark legs, bought and sold at the values I just found, at 600 crafted per hour, you'd make 15.3 mil per hour. That is a crazy amount. According to the wiki's moneymaker list, it would be the second best moneymaker in the whole game, being only by Tombs of Damascus solo level 545. I'm too much of a noob to know how hard that is, but some helpful people in my clan said this achievement data shows less than 2% of people in the game would have the skill to do it. It also assumes that you're doing this with a T-bow and a Tumbican Shadow, which costs 2.5 bill together. For me, that makes it seem to be the best moneymaker in the game for someone that's dog shit like myself. But like a lot of these other methods I've found, the numbers look amazing, but in reality there's a hard upper limit to the amount you can do it. The legs have a daily volume of just 2.1k, so you're going to have to wait a while for them to sell. Also, each 600 you do per hour is going to cost you just over 95 mil in costs. So with the high costs and slow sell times, it means you're going to have a lot of coins stuck in these items. But if you're patient with the selling and have the 95 mil, 15.3 mil per hour is an insane amount. The next item I found that looked interesting is the Hunter's Sunlight Crossbow, added to the game in March 20th in 2024. It requires 74 fletching, which I don't currently have, but after a few hours of Carpal Tunnel Simulator, I managed to get it. To make one, you need a Hunter's Crossbow and a Sunlight Antelope Antler. There's a ton of the antlers on the GE as they're a drop from Training Hunter. The problem is with the crossbows, as according to the wiki, the only way to get them is buying them from this shop. I tried to insta-buy as many as I could on the GE, and I couldn't get a single one, even at 10 times its value for 24k. So it's completely sold out for the day. I decided to see how many I could buy for myself in a shop. I could do an inventory in 2 minutes and 42 seconds, so that's about 22 invents an hour, or 616 crossbows per hour. Taking these crossbows, I was able to make 65 C-bows in 62 seconds. So in 1 hour, I could make 3,770, but I'll say 3,700 to account for the mistakes. It would take me 6 hours to buy that amount of crossbows, and then 1 hour to craft them all. Each crossbow costs 1,313 when buying from the shop. The antler price right now is 1,379, so the total cost is 2,692. And the current sale price on the GE is 6,300. In the hour that you're crafting, you make 13.3 million, which is a very solid number. But of course, the problem is you've just spent 6 hours buying crossbows, so that has to be factored into the hourly amount. So in 7 hours, the profit per hour would be just 1.9 mil. If you slowly buy the crossbows from the GE, you would make 9.6 mil per hour. This is what I opted to do, but it took me a long time to get them as the daily volume is only 880. So yeah, you can get 9.6 mil per hour, but you're gonna have to wait a while. If you've got 2 free spaces in your GE slots, 74 fletching, and don't mind giving yourself a little RSI crafting them, then it's not a bad moneymaker. For this last section of the video, I did write some code to check all the items in the game that spawn on the floor, but the best thing I ended up finding was just collecting snape grass for 400k per hour, so I'll just skip over it. Lastly, I'll leave a link to a spreadsheet in the description for all the methods if you wanted to duplicate it, enter the current GE prices, and see if anything's worth doing.